The candle on the carrot cake sputtered once, then died. No wind. No open window. Just a quiet room, and a single plate set at a table for two. I had waited 37 minutes before lighting it, hoping she'd at least walk through the door in time to see the flame. I even had my phone set up to record it, thinking she might want to watch the surprise later if she was tired. But that flame died alone, like I did that night. I sat there listening to the melting wax drip like it was mocking me. I had planned everything. The cake, her favorite, not mine. The playlist, I made it weeks ago. And the handwritten card that took me 4 drafts to get right without sounding too dramatic. She once said I was too emotional, that I made things heavier than they needed to be. So I tried to keep it light, warm, grateful. The card said, "Thank you for choosing me every day." But that night, she didn't choose me. At 8:12 p.m., I got the text. I still remember the timestamp because I was re-watching the video of the candle. It said, "Hey, going to be late. Caught up with Caleb at the conference. Don't wait." No period at the end. She always did that when she was lying. I stared at her message, reread it, and then scrolled back to the picture I had sent her 4 hours earlier. The one with the set table, the cake, and a little paper party hat I taped to the back of her chair. She hadn't even opened it. I didn't reply. What would I even say? That was the 3rd time Caleb's name had come up that month. First it was, "Caleb's leading the Q4 pitch, I'll be home late." Then, "Caleb's hilarious, you'd love him." And now, she was with him. On my birthday. I remember laughing. Not the funny kind. The kind that sounds like a broken pipe coughing up rust. Then I stood up, blew out the already dead candle for a second time, for the camera, I guess, and shut off the playlist mid-song. I didn't throw anything. Didn't cry. Didn't even eat the cake. I just sat in that silent room and realized I was alone. Not just physically, but spiritually. Emotionally. She'd been drifting for months, and I let her. I made excuses. I told myself she was overwhelmed with work, with her mom's health, with bills. I gave her space. I gave her patience. I gave her everything except what she really wanted, permission to leave me without guilt. And maybe tonight, she finally took it. But here's the twist. I didn't call her. I didn't fight. I didn't beg for an explanation. I walked into our bedroom, took the envelope with her name on it from the drawer, the one I had written 3 weeks ago, but didn't have the courage to give her, and placed it on her pillow. Inside it was a single sentence. "I hope he celebrates you the way I tried to." Then I packed a bag, quietly, methodically, like a ghost sneaking out of a life it no longer belonged in. And when I stepped outside into the cold October air, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. That was the night everything changed. Not for her. For me. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to. Sleep meant waking up to this again, like some cruel time loop where every hour dragged me back to the same question I still couldn't answer. How long had she been gone even when she was here? At 2:17 a.m., she finally came home. I heard the keys fumble at the door like she was either tipsy or trying too hard not to make a sound. I didn't move. I sat in the dark with the hallway lights spilling a faint gold line across the living room floor. I didn't want to confront her. I didn't even want to see her face, not while the sound of her laugh with him still echoed in my head. Yes, him, Caleb. I'd made the mistake of checking her tagged Instagram stories. That's when I saw it. A blurry clip taken at some post-conference bar. Loud music, neon signs, and in the background, there she was, laughing like her world was perfect, her hand casually on his chest like it lived there now. She didn't look drunk. She looked home. She never noticed the camera. But I did. I watched it 5 times. Paused it. Zoomed in. Looked at the way her body curved toward him like gravity was pulling her there. I knew that tilt. I knew that smile. I thought I was the only one who got it. Turns out I was just the first. When she finally stepped into the living room and saw me sitting there, she froze. No gasping. No guilt. Just a quick blink and a painfully neutral. "Oh, you're still up?" Still up. As if I was the weird one for not being asleep while she gallivanted through my birthday with her new favorite distraction. I didn't say anything. I just watched her put her heels down by the door like it was any other night. Like she didn't smell like citrus cologne that wasn't mine. Like she didn't just erase our marriage with a text. "I told you not to wait," she added, as she headed to the kitchen. Not "I'm sorry." Not "happy birthday." Not even "let's talk." Just a flat reminder that I was the one clinging to a version of us that only existed in my head. She opened the fridge, took out the oat milk, drank from the carton, then looked at the counter, where the cake still sat untouched, the frosting now dull and cracked like it was grieving too. She glanced at it, then at me, and asked, "Did you light a candle or something?" I stood up, not in a threatening way, just like a guy realizing the air in the room wasn't breathable anymore. I grabbed my keys. Again, just like the first time. She didn't ask where I was going. She didn't care. But this time, I didn't go to a motel. I didn't sit in my car crying in a gas station parking lot. No, I drove to my brother's place. Haven't spoken to him much since the wedding. He never really liked Raina. Thought she was too cold. Said she reminded him of the ocean in winter. Beautiful, but designed to kill you slowly. He opened the door in boxers, confused, but when he saw my face, he didn't ask. He just stepped aside and said, "You want the couch or my bed?" I slept for 9 straight hours. First real sleep in weeks. And when I woke up, my phone had 6 missed calls. All from her. Not a single voicemail. Not a single text. Just the ringing. Like she suddenly noticed the silence. It wasn't the missed calls that bothered me. It was the silence that followed them. No texts. No voice messages. Just her number appearing again and again on my screen like some kind of digital haunting. As if the ringing was her final attempt to pretend we still functioned like a married couple. Like I'd pick up and ask where she was, or what she wanted for breakfast. But I didn't. Not this time. Not after what I saw. Not after how empty her voice had sounded the night before, or rather, how full it had sounded when she was with him. I stayed at my brother's place 2 more nights. He didn't pry, bless him. Just let me rot on his lumpy futon, feeding me leftover spaghetti and cheap beers while pretending I wasn't emotionally imploding in his guest blanket. Every now and then, I'd catch him glancing over, probably wondering if he should say something. But he didn't. I think he knew words wouldn't help. I didn't need advice. I needed answers. So on the 3rd morning, I went back. Not to fix anything. Not to talk. I just needed to see it. Us. One last time. I needed to walk through the battlefield, see the wreckage with my own eyes, maybe collect the last fragments of myself that I had left scattered all over our apartment over the last 3 years. When I opened the front door, the first thing that hit me wasn't the smell of her shampoo or the faint scent of old lavender detergent. It was the stillness. That kind of eerie, unnatural stillness that doesn't belong in a home. It was a place now, not a home. She wasn't there. Good. Her coat was gone. So were her shoes. Probably at work, which suddenly felt like a laughable euphemism. I walked around the apartment like I was walking through a museum. I stood in front of our framed wedding photo for a good minute, eyes locked on a version of her I didn't recognize anymore. She looked so young in that picture. So sure. Like she believed everything she said that day. Maybe she did. I just don't know when it changed. Then, without thinking, I walked into the bedroom. That's when I saw it. Her phone. Face down. Charging. I don't know what came over me. I had never touched her phone in our entire relationship. I never even felt tempted. But now I felt like it owed me something. It was the vault where all her truths were hidden. And I had a key. Or so I thought. I picked it up. Still warm from her hand. I tapped the screen. Face ID. It unlocked. My heart nearly stopped. She had never removed me from Face ID. And just like that, I was inside. Everything in me screamed to put it down, to walk away, to be the bigger man. But I was done playing honorable husband to someone who didn't think twice before erasing me from her world. The first thing I did was check her messages. Not Caleb's, no. I expected that. I already knew she was talking to him. What I didn't expect was the thread labeled Avery. I froze. Avery was her best friend. Her coworker. The woman who had helped me plan our 3rd anniversary. Who had once cried on my shoulder when her dog died. Who had called me the best thing that ever happened to Raina. They had dozens, no, hundreds, of messages. Voice notes. Photos. And the deeper I scrolled, the more bile crawled up my throat. They weren't just friends. Not emotionally. Not physically. Not secretly. They were partners in the lie. Avery had coached her. Helped her write breakup drafts in case she ever decided to come clean. Encouraged the cheating. Said things like, he'll land on his feet. He's soft, but he's not stupid. And worse, he won't fight. You know Silas. He'll just disappear. They were right. That night, I stood in our bedroom, our sanctuary, and realized that I had been reduced to a background character in my own marriage. I wasn't even the villain. I wasn't even the problem. I was just a placeholder. But they underestimated me. I didn't break anything, didn't scream, didn't post screenshots or expose her on social media. I just placed the phone back where I found it. I made the bed. I cleaned the kitchen. I folded her laundry and left it in a neat stack on the chair like I always did. Then I left her something on the fridge. One of those cheap whiteboard magnets we always used to write grocery lists and inside jokes. I wiped it clean and wrote just one line. I was never your husband. I was your habit. Then I walked out. Again. But this time, not to collapse on a couch with cheap beer. This time, I had a plan. And it started with remembering who I was before she taught me to shrink. I didn't pack much. Just enough to not come back. One duffel bag. Half clothes, half anger, and my laptop. I left the apartment key in the sink, not for drama, but for symbolism. I figured if she wanted to wash her hands of me, she might as well start there. The funny part is, I didn't even know where I was going. I got in my car and just drove. I didn't call anyone. Didn't post anything. I didn't even play music. Just me and the hum of the engine, and the rare, bitter chuckle when I remembered that I once skipped my own brother's bachelor party to help Raina build an IKEA dresser. 3 hours into driving nowhere, I found myself in front of the place I hadn't visited in years, my father's cabin. It wasn't his anymore, technically. He passed it down to me before he died. "You'll need a place to disappear someday," he said when handing over the keys. I thought it was a weird thing to say at the time. Now it feels like prophecy. The cabin sat in the woods like it had been waiting for me. Dusty, cold, unloved, but intact. Just like me. I lit the fireplace. Sat down. Pulled out my laptop. I wasn't ready to journal. I wasn't ready to cry. I was ready to learn. To understand. To gather intel. So I logged back into Raina's email. I know. Call it betrayal if you want. But what she did wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. She had rewritten our history, cast me as a footnote, and handed the lead role to someone named Caleb who wore too much cologne and said things like, "We vibe different." I needed to know what else she buried. I clicked into a folder called Personal. It wasn't hidden, wasn't password protected. Because why would it be? I wasn't supposed to look. Inside were receipts. Literal and emotional. Flight itineraries. Not business class, not corporate sponsored. Private trips. Long weekends. Hotels. Some local. Some far. There was one reservation in particular that burned itself into my mind. A boutique hotel in Asheville. The same weekend she told me she was attending her mother's spiritual retreat in Sedona. The Asheville receipt included spa treatments for two. A couple's massage. The note on the reservation even read, "Please place rose petals on the bed before arrival." She had never asked for that with me. Not once. But here's the part that flipped the entire narrative upside down. It wasn't Caleb on the reservation. It was someone named Ellis. I stared at the name for so long I forgot how to blink. My hands were shaking. Who the hell was Ellis? I searched the name through her inbox. Nothing romantic. No flirty emails. No emoji-stuffed messages. Just 2 booking confirmations and a single message that said, "We keep it clean." No strings. No trail. Caleb was the distraction. The one she flaunted. But Ellis? He was the real secret. The kind you bury in silence. The kind you lock behind a life that looks normal on the outside. I closed the laptop and sat back, heart racing. Because in that moment, everything changed. I realized I wasn't even betrayed once. I was betrayed in layers. There were tears to it. Caleb was betrayal for the ego. Ellis was betrayal for the soul. That's when the switch flipped. For weeks, I had been grieving like a widower at my own emotional funeral. But now I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. I didn't want revenge. Not the angry, screaming, scorched earth kind. I wanted something cleaner. Quieter. Something surgical. Something she'd feel in places she didn't even know could ache. So I started writing. Not to her. Not about her. About me. I wrote a short piece about being the other husband. The kind who folds laundry, who fills gas tanks, who remembers appointments and birthdays only to end up replaced by mystery and danger. I didn't post it under my name. I created a new identity. A pen name. Threw it up on a few forums and subreddits. Thought maybe 5 people would read it. It went viral in 2 days. People were quoting it, sharing it, commenting, calling it the most painfully accurate description of emotional neglect they'd ever read. And here's where it gets wild. 3 days later, Raina texted me for the first time since I left. "No, where are you? No, let's talk." Just a screenshot of my post, with a single line underneath. Did you write this? I didn't respond. I let her sit in it. For the first time, she didn't know where I was, what I was thinking, or if I was even still hers to hurt. She taught me silence. Now I'm teaching her what absence really feels like. The first message she sent me after the viral post was followed by 4 days of silence. I didn't respond. I didn't block her either. I knew that would frustrate her more. Blocking meant I cared. Ignoring? That meant I'd outgrown needing a reaction. On the 5th day, she cracked. This time it wasn't just a message. It was a voice note. 1 minute and 42 seconds of Reina sounding nothing like herself. Her tone wasn't confident, or angry, or even sad. It was tight, measured, like someone trying not to let their voice tremble while the walls closed in. She didn't ask where I was. She didn't ask if I was okay. She asked who had seen the post. She asked if it was about her. She asked if I had told anyone else. And that told me everything. She wasn't sorry. She was afraid. Not of me, but of her image. Because now there was a version of our story floating around the internet, one she couldn't control. One where she was the ghoster, the manipulator, the woman who stood in a kitchen sipping oat milk while her husband sat in emotional ruins. And the worst part for her? People liked me. Suddenly, the man she called overly sensitive was being called brave. The one she dismissed as too boring was being applauded for his emotional honesty. I was anonymous, but she knew it was me. And the world sided with the voice she thought would never speak. She sent another message later that night. This time it was softer, apologetic. Said she missed me. Said the apartment was weirdly quiet. Told me the cake was still in the fridge, untouched. That she kept opening the fridge and closing it, like the cake was whispering my name. I still didn't respond. Because it was never about the cake. It was about control. The next morning, I got a Venmo notification. She sent me $14.88. The description read, "For the candle." I stared at the screen for a full minute. That stupid little flicker of hope, the one that clings to even the most abused heart, wanted to believe it was romantic, that it meant she remembered, that she regretted it. But no, it wasn't about me. It was guilt money. It was her way of saying, "Here, I paid for the damage. We're square." Except we weren't. Not even close. So I sent it back. No message. No emoji. Just reversed it. And then I did something that changed everything. Not just for her, but for me. I posted again. Not about the marriage. Not about the betrayal. I wrote a short piece titled, "When a man goes quiet, it's already too late." And this time, I didn't use a pen name. I used my real one. Silas Dalton. I published it under my full name on Medium. I attached a photo. I told the story of what it felt like to be erased slowly, not with violence, but with indifference. I talked about the kind of woman who says, "I'm tired," instead of "I'm distant," who says, "I need space," but fills it with someone else. It spread faster than the first post. People emailed me. Men, women, strangers from across the country. Some told me they cried. Some said they left their own version of Reina after reading it. A few asked if I'd be willing to do a podcast interview. Someone even offered to option it for a short film. But the most surprising message? It came from Avery. Yes, that Avery. Her best friend. The emotional co-conspirator. The one who helped Reina write draft breakup letters and told her he won't fight. Her message wasn't long. It said, "I didn't know about Ellis. I'm so sorry. She didn't tell me that part." I reread it 3 times, trying to gauge the angle. Was she turning on Reina? Trying to clear her own name? Fishing for more information? But then, she followed up with a screenshot. It was a calendar invite. Reina had booked a trip 2 months before my birthday. Destination? Charleston. Under guest list, 2 names, Reina, Ellis. And next to notes, 1 word, closure. Closure for who? She had planned to end things before my birthday. That much was now obvious. But something had changed. She hadn't followed through. She let it stretch. Let it rot. She waited for me to be the one to leave so she could stay clean in the story. That's why the fridge cake mattered. That's why the text was cold. That's why the candle money came. She was building a defense, a timeline where she could say I gave up, not her. Too late. She forgot I pay attention. She forgot I love receipts. And now, I had all of them. So I started organizing them. Not to humiliate her, but to protect myself. Because when a woman like Reina loses control, she doesn't give up. She rewrites. And I refused to let her hold the pen this time. 3 days after I posted my real name, the silence ended. Not hers, mine. Raina showed up at the cabin. I don't know how she found it. I never told her about it. Maybe she remembered the keychain that hung on my old car keys. Maybe she called my brother, begged him, cried. It doesn't matter. What matters is that she stood on the porch in the middle of the afternoon, wearing the same coat she wore the night she came home late on my birthday. The one I always said made her look like she was heading to a funeral. Maybe that was poetic in a way. I didn't open the door immediately. I just watched her through the cracked blinds. She didn't knock. She didn't pace. She stood there like a statue, like she wasn't sure who she'd become since the last time I looked at her with anything resembling love. I opened the door slowly. Said nothing. She looked smaller in person. Not physically, but energetically. Something in her spine had collapsed. She held her phone in both hands like a white flag, thumb hovering like she was afraid I'd slap it away. Her first words? I read everything. I didn't think you'd go public. I didn't invite her in. I didn't offer tea or comfort. I leaned against the doorframe and waited. She started slow, like she was reciting a monologue she'd practiced in the car. She said she wasn't proud of how things unfolded, that she got confused, that she didn't expect to fall apart that way. She kept using words like blurred lines and emotional overwhelm, textbook phrases pulled from someone else's therapist. But the moment that should have landed hardest, her apology, came out like a formality. I'm sorry I hurt you, Silas. You didn't deserve any of that. It sounded like someone reading the last line of an email. No weight, no cracks in her voice. Just a sentence she felt obligated to deliver so she could cross it off her to-do list. And I stood there, silent, watching her eyes flicker, not with guilt, but with calculation. She wasn't apologizing because she meant it. She was apologizing because she needed the narrative back. My story, our story, was now in the hands of the internet, of readers, of people she couldn't manipulate. And that terrified her. Because the version of herself she curated, the poised, empowered, modern professional woman navigating a complicated world, didn't align with the one people now recognized as cold, calculating, and careless. That's what she really came for. Not forgiveness. Control. And when she realized I wasn't going to hand it back to her, she changed tactics. You're hurting your own image too, you know, she said. I'm not the villain. We were broken long before Caleb. There it was. The pivot. The shared blame angle. Classic. I tilted my head. Then why not leave me? Why build a whole secret life instead of just saying you were done? She didn't answer. Not because she didn't have one, but because she didn't like the answer. Because the truth is, I was never hard to leave. I was just easy to keep. I was the guy who remembered birthdays, who fixed cabinet hinges, who offered back rubs without expecting anything. I was safe. And safe doesn't leave a scar. But now I was the scar. When it was clear she wasn't going to get what she came for, she took a step back, but not before saying something I'll never forget. You really think the internet loving your sad little posts is going to fix you? And maybe it was petty, maybe it was cruel, but I finally smiled. No, I said, but it's breaking you, isn't it? She blinked. Just once. Then turned and left. No dramatic exit. No door slam. Just the sound of her shoes crunching down the gravel path like punctuation. I didn't watch her go. I closed the door, locked it, and for the first time in years, I felt tall in my own skin. She wasn't going to rewrite this story. Not anymore. And the best part? I hadn't even started the real version yet. It took exactly 6 days from the moment Raina stood on my porch to when she made her next move. I knew she wasn't done. Her ego would never allow her to vanish silently, not when the story no longer obeyed her hands. But I didn't expect what came next. I was sipping coffee on the cabin's back porch, scrolling through a few anonymous messages from people who had read my most recent post. One woman wrote that she hadn't cried in a year until she read the line, "I was never your husband, I was your habit." Another said it helped her forgive herself for walking away from someone who made her feel invisible. These strangers, these voices from places I'd never been, knew me more intimately than my own wife ever had. I should have seen it coming. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a private message. It was a tag. Raina had posted, publicly, a glossy photo of her face, half shadowed by golden hour light. Captioned, "We all heal differently. Sometimes people turn pain into poetry. I choose truth. My side's coming soon." Hashtag perspective. 30,000 followers. A mix of co-workers, family, old friends from college, and strangers who thought her curated vulnerability was authenticity. The comments started immediately, supportive, of course. So proud of you for speaking up, Yellowheart. Tell your story. We're listening. Silence doesn't mean guilt. Can't wait for your truth. I read them all, twice. Then I read them again. Not because I was shocked, but because I had underestimated her. I thought she'd retreat, disappear into comfort and denial like she always did. But this was Reina weaponizing the one thing she always loved more than me, perception. I didn't respond publicly. I wasn't stupid. Instead, I sat down with my coffee, opened my laptop, and began writing something I hadn't touched in nearly a year, my manuscript. The unfinished novel. The one she always told me to save for later whenever I got too into it. Said it wouldn't pay the bills. That it was a sweet little hobby. She didn't know I'd already renamed the main character. She didn't know I had repurposed our anniversary trip, the one she faked a stomach ache to avoid, as the setting for Chapter 9. She didn't know that every time she whispered "not tonight" and rolled away from me, I wrote instead of sleeping. But now the book had an ending. She gave it to me. I started writing in 12-hour stretches. No distractions. No calls. I lived off granola bars and cold brew and the memory of her trying to steal the narrative one last time. And then, 2 days later, it happened. I got an email from someone I never expected. Avery. Again. Subject line, Reina's spiraling. You need to see this. Attached was a screenshot of a draft blog post, something Reina had written but not yet published. It was long, rambling, defensive. It didn't deny the cheating. It didn't mention Caleb or Ellis by name. But it painted a very careful picture, one where she was trapped in a loveless, emotionally unstable marriage, where I was passive-aggressive, withdrawn, and creatively manipulative. She was building her version of me, the villain, the emotionally unavailable husband, the man who wrote tearful essays because he was too afraid to take responsibility for his own failures. I read it 5 times. My hands didn't shake. My throat didn't close. Instead, I opened a new document. I wrote a 4,000-word piece in a single sitting. Not about her. About me. Not the crying, self-blaming version she remembered, but the man I became after walking away. The one who didn't need to respond to every lie, because the absence of defense was its own kind of truth. And for the first time in my life, I submitted it to a major publication. No aliases. No pen name. Silas Dalton. The next morning, an editor emailed back. They wanted to feature it on the homepage. Full exposure. A short intro interview. Paid too. And that's when I understood something I never saw before. She didn't leave me for someone better. She left me because she thought I'd never matter without her. She believed she was the best part of my story. Now, she was just the catalyst. The day the article went live on the homepage, my inbox exploded. Publishers, journalists, podcasters, even a couple of agents. They all wanted to talk. Not about the betrayal, exactly, but about the man who didn't shatter. The man who turned silence into something loud enough to echo. I wasn't just the broken husband anymore. I had become the narrator, the storyteller, and people were listening. And then, I got the message that stopped me cold. It was from Ellis. Yes, that Ellis. The one whose name appeared on flight confirmations, hotel invoices, and whispered emails Reina thought she deleted. It came in through my website's contact form. Short, polite, chilling in its simplicity. I didn't know about you until too late. If you ever want to know the truth from my side, I'll answer anything. You deserve that. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I needed to know more, I didn't. But because for the first time, someone from the other side wasn't offering a defense. They were offering honesty. I never wrote back. Because the truth was, I didn't need Ellis's version of the story. I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I wasn't trapped in that house of questions. I had walked out the front door and left it to collapse behind me. Instead, I turned off my phone and took a walk through the woods behind the cabin. It was cold. The kind of cold that bites the tips of your ears and fingers, but I liked it. It made me feel awake. Real. It reminded me that sometimes the most beautiful things are the ones that can hurt you, if you stand still too long. When I got back, I found something sitting on the porch. A small package. No label. No return address. Just a thick envelope and a worn paperback inside. The book was Slaughterhouse 5. Reina had given me that copy years ago, long before the silence. I opened it, and sure enough, her old underlines were still there. The dog-eared pages. the scribbled margin notes. Tucked inside was a note, handwritten, familiar cursive. I don't expect forgiveness. I only hope one day you'll remember that some of it was real. I'll always be sorry I broke the part of you that trusted easiest. I sat with it for a while. No tears, no anger, just a calm that felt new. Because yes, some of it had been real, and some of it had been a lie. But that's the thing about memory. It doesn't need permission to hold both. I burned the note in the fireplace. I kept the book. The next week, I signed with a literary agent. The manuscript I had started writing, the one Raina called a sweet little hobby, sold in a modest deal to a publisher who believed in the power of personal story. Not revenge, not scandal, truth. They asked me what I wanted to call it. I didn't hesitate. The candle went out alone. And here's the part one didn't expect. At one of the early readings, a woman approached me. Not young, not flashy, just kind eyes and a nervous smile. She told me she had read every word. Twice. Said she never felt so understood. That her own silence finally made sense. We got coffee after. Then dinner. Then something that wasn't pain. It's too early to call it love. I'm not even sure I believe in that word the same way anymore. But it's something real. Something that doesn't come with secrets, or draft emails, or locked phones. Something that doesn't require erasing myself to be loved. So yes, I lost my marriage. But I gained something far more important. Myself. And if I could go back, through the betrayal, the silence, the birthday candle that flickered out in front of no one, I wouldn't change a thing. Because the man who sat at that table and waited died that night. And the man who walked away, he finally learned how to live.